this is going to be a great episode. We are going to talk about Terry Pratchett movies, shorts, as well as his books, and what we as writers can take from that for inspiration and also just to enjoy. And like, if you don't know who Terry Pratchett is, don't worry. You're not alone. He is the best selling English language author of all time, better than JKR, better than the Bible, better than actually JKR and the Bible combined, in fact. He is the most best-selling author since books started in the English language. And most Americans have never heard of him. So that's right. I know, it's wild. It's wild. But that is why we're going to talk about Terry Pratchett today. Is he is wildly popular, and yet most Americans have never heard of him. So I think there's definitely something for American writers to take from it, as well as non-American writers, everyone else who at least can understand me in English. I think there is a lot to be gained from him, from studying his work and just frankly enjoying his stories. He's got, I think, 36 Discworld books? And that
41.
40, you looked at 41 Discworld books. And then that does not include his other YA books and his non-YA books as well. Like, that's just within the Discworld stories. And within Discworld, he covers most genres. So there's really something for everyone in fiction reading who, if they want to explore Terry Pratchett. That's one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite authors to recommend to people when they're like, I just want something to read and I'm tired of everything I already know. Tell me about something I don't know. And it's like, man, have you heard about Terry Pratchett? And it doesn't matter what you're into. It doesn't matter if you're into romances or murder mysteries or science fiction or fantasy. There is a Discworld novel for you somewhere out there, if not actually a mini series within. So that's one of the reasons we're going to talk about him. Also because, quite honestly, a bunch of the Terry Pratchett movies, the movies based on Terry Pratchett novels, are really fun. They're gorgeous. There's animated ones. There's live action. They're fantastic. You may actually be familiar with Terry Pratchett, though, through Good Omens, Amazon Prime series. And there's another season coming out because Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman wrote the Good Omens book together. And honestly, if you read the book Good Omens, then you definitely like Terry Pratchett's storytelling, because there's a whole lot of Terry in there. It's not just Neil Gaiman. So just to throw that in, if you like the Good Omens TV series, again, you'll probably like Terry Pratchett as well, because Terry also has a lot of that sort of fun and quirky and a bit of whimsy, but also lots of twists and turns. So he keeps you on your toes. A lot of characters, but yet characters that are well sketched, so it's fairly easy to keep track of who's who. So again, Terry Pratchett has also a fantastic YA series in Discworld that I personally cannot recommend enough. I love the Tiffany Aching series so much, and the We Free Men that are with her in the Tiffany Aching series. They are adorable, and pretty much I have yet to find a child who read any of the Tiffany Aching books that did not also enjoy the We Free Men, because they are little men who paint themselves blue, and they're kind of a wild bunch. And what child doesn't relate to at least feeling like that sometimes? I mean, literally, like 20 little men will steal a cow. The cow is still awake and eating, going, what is happening? And why is the world moving without me walking? And they're really strong, and they just lift them up and walk them away. So they're super fun. So again, there is so much to love about the Terry Pratchett novels. And also, they're going to more than likely keep making films and TV shows based on it, because before Terry Pratchett died, he established a company called Narrativia that his daughter Rihanna now runs. And she is a very talented storyteller in her own right. She really made a name for herself writing stories for video games. and doing storyboard editing inside video games. And I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't remember several of them, but if you look them up, they are very well known games. So she is such a talented storyteller in her own right, and she and Rob Wilkins are overseeing Narrativia. So more than likely, you're going to see a whole bunch more Terry Pratchett productions over the years. So again, it would behoove you to get familiar with it, because this is going to be a lot of your sci-fi fantasy kind of whimsical stories. The Amazing Maurice just came out like in 2022 as an animated movie, and they're going to keep making more. So without further ado, I have fantastic people here to help me. There is, of course, Tom. You know him. I love him. He is fantastic. He is also my story development editor. He is the person who guides me, and he has guided many other people at the request. So just let you know, he has his own talent separate from me. And then there is, of course, the very talented and highly published Stephanie. Hello, hello.
Hello, everybody.
I was gonna say, you have several books out now.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I actually lost count. To be perfectly honest, at the last minute, I panicked because I was like, wait, is it 4, 6? Oh, shoot. I've lost count.
8.
Yeah, I definitely lost. Like, because I remember I saw something maybe on Instagram last month or this month of yours, and you mentioned a book number that I was like, wait, what? How many books?
Yeah, I'm like, people ask me how many books, and I have to think about it. I'm like, wait, did I really do that much? But yeah, I did. I was going to have a book release this month, but I had to postpone it until next month because we had the drive from Texas to Oregon was long and exhausting. The snow was long and exhausting. It's just exhausting. So instead of trying to rush and put out some crappy book, I decided to just cancel the pre-order and then just hopefully have it ready by the end of March.
So. Very nice. I think that probably sounds like a much better idea, in part so you're not so stressed.
Yes.
I mean, not unduly stressed. Like, there's stresses you can't control, and then there's stresses you can control. Like, if you are indie published, you can control the deadline days. So.
Yes. And I've learned not to do pre-orders because pre-orders just stress me out. And I find that when I don't have a pre-order, I get the book done earlier than planned. But I have a pre-order, I procrastinate. Like, it's my God's gift to myself to be a procrastinator of all things. And then stuff falls through the cracks, or I miss typos that my daughter loves to point out to me after the fact. So there's that.
Oh, the typos.
Yes, the typos.
They haunt us.
They haunt us all.
My daughter is now my in-house proofreader.
Nice.
And she catches things. I'm like, how did you catch that? Like, she'll catch things like a space in between a period and a quotation mark. And she's, much younger than me, obviously. So she's a really good proofreader. She catches stuff in other professionally published books anyway. So it's her favorite thing to do. I found a typo, Mom. So
that's cool.
Very nice.
So, Tom, how shall we start? There is, by the way, in the description below, a list of Terry Pratchett media that you can partake of if anybody is interested afterwards. They are on, several of them are on various streaming services. It depends on your country. And, honestly, month to month, it changes even in America who's streaming what. For literally at least 5 or 6 years, most of what was available was streaming on Amazon Prime. And then that changed. And so again, it's one of these of, I can't keep up anymore. And in fact, some of these, and the animated ones, some of the animated ones are actually available on YouTube.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, Soul Music and Wyrd Sisters were actually done as multiple episodes. So I think Soul Music has 7 episodes to it.
Yep.
And I think Wyrd Sisters maybe a 6. Can't remember anymore.
I thought it was 6.
Yeah. So again, keep in mind you can actually watch several of these on YouTube if that's something you're interested in, which again I would recommend. I would honestly recommend all of them at least once and minimum multiple times.
I was thinking maybe we should start with The Color of Magic
Mm-hmm.
because it was his first Discworld books.
Okay.
And it sort of introduces to you his concept and what Discworld would become. Because
he was trying to take the piss out of fantasy novels.
Yes, Discworld was, started as a farce, a joke about what fantasy stories had become in the 80s. And a lot of what people like about Discworld hasn't changed as he continued on writing in it. But it is self-aware about the tropes. And the two things you have to understand when you watch Terry Pratchett stories that is surprising for a lot of people is Discworld especially, but the other YAs as well, that he's done, is a journalist writing fiction about fantasy worlds. And so you see the concerns of a journalist, of what they would ask and what they are concerned about in a real life event. And that's what he then transports into this fantastical realm of magic and, steampunk aesthetics. And
I agree.
And the first two, Color of Magic, and was it The Light Fantastic?
Mm-hmm.
Were just his sort of joke about fantasy at the time. Most of these characters would show up again, and he even does it as a travel log and as a welcome to this crazy world, because he has a character show up in the mega city of Ankh-Morpork, which is somewhere between, which is pretty much his version of London, aka no one's safe. And this place is full of, people up to no good. Well, somewhere between London and Gotham, New York. Everyone's crazy here. And we are introduced to it through this character who has a lot of money and just is the Discworld's first vacationer. No one's ever heard of vacations in this world. They're like, what is a vacation? What are you doing? I want to see a new place. It sounds fun. And they go on a crazy adventure as he just rips apart the fantasy genre and all these tropes. From what happens to heroes when they get old, to what's up with dragons and they don't show up much, but they're occasionally there. And the whole damsels in distress, and that can this be a profession as well. But yeah, it's a great intro to fantasy of, and this ridiculousness of fantasy. Also, I mean, it does have Sean Astin as the naive main character, playing a character very similar to Samwise Gamgee. Like, I'm pretty sure he got the part because of Lord of the Rings. We do naive like few others.
We should probably at this point mention that in the book, the character that Sean Astin plays, the character is named Two Flower, and he is from a different continent on Discworld that is coded for Asia. Hence Two Flowers' name, which is frankly much more of a Chinese-style naming convention at the time that Terry Pratchett was familiar with. Sean Astin being cast is definitely an example of whitewashing. So be aware of, but they still, put the character of Sean Astin's character, Two Flower, in what would be appropriate to expect to see an Asian tourist wearing in London or somewhere else, i.e., he's in Hawaiian shirts and a straw hat at one point. And he's like very much concerned with, no, this is how you tourist, even though no one has ever touristed before. So he keeps reading from a phrase book, even though he speaks Ankh-Morporkian, English very well. But he's like, but that's it, to be a tourist, you have to use the phrase book. Like, why? So it's something to be aware of. There is whitewashing in the movie versus how the book is coded. And frankly, they got better with that. They didn't do that quite as much later on in productions, but I think I just felt like we should probably acknowledge this.
Yeah. Satirizing the whole genre. And
I think you're having internet problems or your laptop problems.
Oh, I thought it was on my end.
Because you just said satirizing the whole genre.
Oh.
And you didn't move.
Yes,
so
it was.
Color of Magic was released as a 2 movie length episodes. Originally on, is it Skynet, ITV?
Wait, Skynet's from the Terminator movies.
I know, but no, they actually, there's a channel, I swear. It's Sky
There's a production company called Sky TV.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And for a while, it was called Skynet, for real. I watched enough British panel shows. It was called Skynet. And I'm like, did they know that's supposed to be the evil channel?
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the British for it. Okay.
But like any good series, Discworld was written as a sort of one-off. I mean, really, as a two-off. And that was it. That was the original plans. This was just we're going to go through the fantasy world and show you how silly all the elements and tropes of fantasy are now. That's all. And people really enjoyed it. Because it's not often you see high fantasy with good comedy. Like, that is one of the things Terry Pratchett is known for, is he has an excellent sense of humor. There's always levity in, no matter how dire the situation, there is realizing this is ridiculous. Or sometimes moralizing of this is wrong. These are bad behaviors. People shouldn't be doing this. But so many people kept writing of when's the next book coming out, that he sort of rethought his plans, and it's like, okay, I could write a few more in this. This is he disregarded it originally because it was so simple and easy for him to write. He didn't think anyone else would take it seriously because isn't writing supposed to be hard? And these were just, simple little adventures. He just, wrote off. Who cares? It's something fun to write. And so he actually ended up using it as a platform to explore a lot of real-world situations he saw around him that he was not a big enough journalist to write articles about that people would read and have influence. So instead, he wrote these articles into stories of fantasy. Because I think the next book he wrote was Sorcery?
Equal Rights.
Equal Rights.
That's the one I actually recommend to people who like fantasy and you want something different. That's the one, particularly if they're female, I recommend they read Equal Rights. Because it is still following a lot of the fantasy, witchcraft, and sorcery and wizardry genres. And then it goes, but why gender?
Yes.
Why?
And you would see this play out through all the stories of essentially every book has a central question that any journalist would have about society. And goes about showing why is society okay with it? Why is it playing out like this? And then what are things we could do to change it? You know, they're actually very informative.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty Clara and I have reading the Discworld books eventually became the more outlandish a story element was, the more likely it was actually based on some part of reality. Is that, like a good Southern writer, Terry Pratchett was not very good at making stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
He just researched a lot, so most of this stuff really has happened. The more ridiculous behaviors of humans, that stuff happened. But yeah, but it's always fun. Like that's what we love. Like the pacing of the books is always really good. The Color of Magic is a really fun movie series to watch. I mean, you would not guess how long it really is. And that's the other part that's a bit odd about Terry Pratchett movies and series is unlike a lot of books that are turned into movies and series, these are mostly just directly translated from the books. They include pretty much the full story of the book. They adapt almost everything. Which is why most of them are 3.5+ hours long, because books have a lot more story than most movies. Most movies are really short story are really novella length. Yeah, almost all Terry Pratchett ones, except for the Amazing Maurice, are the entire book. Either animated or live action. But they are fun. Also, if you watch Terry Pratchett for any length of time, everyone loves his version of death, which is not the same death you see in Good Omens or Neil Gaiman's. But it is a personification of death, and it is surprisingly curious about humans. But you also essentially get to wrap up when people die, which is also a different weird thing, is people do not have heroic deaths. They just sometimes die. And then you get to hear their final words after they die. Which is something unique to Terry Pratchett, but is often very interesting and poignant and teaches you a lot about life. Or sometimes it's a great comedy because the wizard Rincewind keeps encountering death, almost dying, but never does.
So Death makes comments about having a near Rincewind experience. Like you would have a near-death experience. But it is from Death's point of view.
They're like, oh no, it's you again. How are you going to escape this time? It really seems like I should be here to get you, but what's going to happen next? And it's voiced by Christopher Lee. I mean, Christopher Lee as Death is wonderful throughout almost all of the series.
I think what I grew to very much enjoy is Terry Pratchett's examination of various industries in our modern world through his novels, and they would specifically devote it in a novel. So The Truth is about the newspaper and journalism industry. Going Postal is a very honest examination of both the postal system, specifically in Britain, as well as the, at the time, still burgeoning mobile phone system in Britain. So, and to see how those two were interplaying as well. it was very interesting. It was very educational, but what a fun way to do it. Let's see. Making Money is about the banking industry in England, and it is very accurate for America as well, I will say. And I really learned actually quite a bit from Making Money, and everything I looked up from Making Money turned out to be true about the American banking system, which that's a wild ride when your fantasy fiction is teaching you about how modern American banking works. Ooh. Ouch. Raising Steam was about the development of trains in Europe as well as America. So I learned quite a bit about it, and a lot of it I knew. I've always kind of enjoyed trains since I was a little kid, but I was really more, as a child, more focused on the mechanics of trains rather than the train industry and the cutthroat, what was happening with that. Which, interestingly, my family is like intertwined with the train industry in the 1800s. So it kind of made several family stories make a lot more sense. So, as I said, like that is just part of it, but there's also like the City Watch books. And those really examine modern police law enforcement, as well as the people who work there. But in that respect, he reimagines it into what he wishes modern law enforcement was. Because as he points out in The Hogfather, humans need something to hope in and believe in, or else how can it ever become? Humans need this, and writers are the ones, for the most part, who do that. We give people the idea of worlds and relationships and people and places, and then humans go out and they go, that is a great idea. Let me go try to bring that into reality. And if enough humans think that at the same time, stuff becomes reality. Whether we're talking little things like sliding doors, the automatic sliding doors, which I've never realized how much I appreciate till I was hearing someone in England on a YouTube video talk about how difficult it is to navigate, since apparently they really don't have sliding glass doors there, like automatic sliding glass doors.
Huh. I didn't know that either.
And how difficult it is to just go to the grocery store or whatever, because it's all pull doors. And she doesn't have the ability to really like have a lot of upper body strength, let alone she cannot pull her child's stroller and open these doors. And there's no automatic buttons. So you know how like here in America, sometimes there's buttons and it will open the door for you, like so it's wheelchair accessible. Apparently that is very rare. Like it's pretty much impossible to find in most parts of the UK. And I'm like, it's everywhere here. It's fantastic. I can't tell you the last time I've opened a grocery store door in my life. I honestly don't remember the last time I opened a grocery store door. Yeah, they're apparently not in Bristol.
I know it's all automatic over here.
Yeah, it's all automatic. Or there's a big metal button you press and the door opens itself. You know, so that if it's not an automatic sliding glass door that has a sensor, you press the button and it opens. And like we have like at the university I went to, every door had that. If it didn't have an automatic sliding glass door that had a sensor, then it had that. Every single exterior door had this.
Come to think of it, the college that I went to here in Oregon, I mean, it was a community college next to a university, but even the university, we all had to open it by hand. There was no automatic.
Yeah, it's really lovely. Like they've had that at my university that I attended since they started implementing it in the 90s, and they finished implementing it in every single building on my campus, I think by 2002, 2003.
Okay.
And it was like every single door, like they had at least one entrance to every door, and it was always the most popular entrance or the most accessible entrance. And then I think by 2007 or 2008, it was every single exterior door, period. And that was so convenient when I would be loaded down with books. I would just be like, I'm too exhausted. Let me just press the button. You know, like the door would open and I could just walk in, let alone, yeah, everybody, like there were, so yes, on my campus, tons of people in mobility devices because they can actually go everywhere. They don't need to sit around and wait for someone to open the door for them. Yeah, again, like, it's so nice that there's just all these automatic doors here in America. And like, also having interior enclosed shopping malls where there's no doors inside the mall, like to go into each store. It's just open. You just walk around. And I never realized how convenient that is. But yes, if you are having issues with doors, whether we're talking because you're in a mobility device or you just have very little upper body strength or you are other limbed, and so maybe you're not able to fully grip for whatever the reason, just being able to walk into every store at the mall is also very convenient. And I was like, yeah, we have that so much. We have it in spades here. My God, we have too much. And apparently in much part of southern England, that is not the case. Because this person had gone to Malaysia and Singapore and was like, oh, it's so nice. I can just take my child everywhere and I don't need anyone to help me open doors if I have them in a stroller or anything. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that not called just everywhere? And it was really eye-opening to hear her talk about the accessibility.
Yeah,
So
I would have thought it would just, I would have just assumed it's everywhere, like automatic doors.
Me
you know,
too.
going in and out.
It just didn't occur to
never,
me.
yeah, wouldn't have occurred to me either.
Also, in most of Asia where I've traveled, also it's all automatic doors, or it's just open air. The door is always propped open. Also down here in the Deep South, in other stores, they will honestly just prop open the door all day, every day when they're open. So again, there's no entrance issue for people who may have issues opening the door. Jen says, I think where I live, it's required to build that way or renovate a business that way. I appreciate it too. I remember the stroller. Yes, the stroller days. Or if you have like a little cart, again, maybe you can't lug your groceries, so you have a little cart, and just being able to easily get in and out of stores is just such a help. But yeah, down here, other stores like gas stations often will just literally have a rock, a big little rock, or something else to prop open the door if they don't have sliding glass doors. And it's just, they just leave it open because the weather's nice most of the time. Like
I did notice the difference between like the Pacific Northwest of the United States and like Texas, Louisiana area where I'd been the last year, that down south there's more availability for anybody, no matter their ability or not ability to go in and out of stores. I don't think I've ever, in Texas, I've ever been in a store where the doors didn't automatically open. But in Oregon, there are stores that you still have to push your door open. I did notice that difference. Just the little things I noticed between regions of the U.S. is odd.
It's like I really did not realize how fortunate we are. Because like many times it does not feel fortunate to live in South Mississippi. But these mobility issues really are not as huge an issue here like they are in other parts of the world. And that closes the world off to a great many people. I think it's estimated that up to now, especially with COVID, a third of the human population currently has a disability, has something that affects their ability to navigate their world easily, whether it's a mental or physical or psychological, whatever. They have something that is making it difficult for them to navigate the world. That is a lot of people to have to overcome how 2/3 of the rest of the world are living.
And actually, if you think about some of them, Terry Pratchett does bring that up in a bunch, especially stuff like The Watch,
Yes.
where as part of his reimagining of how policing could work, it's a very diverse group of people in The Watch.
Yeah.
Including
Cheery Littlebottom.
Yes.
Who is a dwarf. She is very, very short. Like, apparently she's even rather short, even for some dwarfs. And she wears a cute little leather skirt, which I think is adorable. And she tie-dyes her beard.
Cheery definitely can be seen coded for a discussion about trans.
Mm-hmm.
Because dwarves are supposed to all present as male. And it's just a delicate courtship to figure out if the other person is receptive and interested in, what God gave you.
I did not know that about dwarves.
Well, at least
Terry
in Harry
Pratchett's works.
Okay.
But like in The Watch, Cheery is the true outlier because, she wants to present as female.
Like, she wants to braid her beard and dye it colors. She wants to wear a leather skirt and heels, and leather heeled boots. And she wants to do all this femme stuff. And that is verboten among the dwarf culture she's raised in. So in order for her to live as an adult, she has to leave her culture and she gets a job at the Night Watch because she can't work in the mines with her family because she wants to wear feminine clothing, which is forbidden in her culture. And she is still stared at a lot when she is out on patrol on the streets by other dwarves who are just like, never seen a femme dwarf. That's so weird, As well as because she is so short, when she is doing desk work, she needs not just one crate, but multiple crates to be up to the reception desk counter. And so they it becomes a discussion point in one of the books. And she's like, "Oh, I just built it myself. I just did it. I didn't have, I need it. No. I'm fine. I can do this job. She's." And so there's this whole discussion, and Sam Vimes is like, "Well, but we should be addressing that. Like, you work here, you're not obligated to bring your own steps, and so on." And I think that is worthy of discussion. And it helped that he was such a best-selling author in these books that essentially it made it part of the vernacular of this discussion about workplace safety and what accommodations are reasonable and so on. And so again, there is no part of society that at a certain point Terry Pratchett does not examine in these novels. And that is one of the things I very much enjoyed. But again, if you're into Christmas, there's a book called The Hogfather. And there is, again, they made a TV movie series of it too. And I will just go ahead and tell you what happens is the Hogfather disappears. Can you imagine if Santa Claus disappeared the night before Christmas? So Death takes over for Discworld Santa Claus role while he sort of baits his granddaughter into figuring out what happened to Santa Claus and remedy it, fix the problem. And it is, then of course hijinks and hilarity ensues. Good times. It's kind of hard when you're Death to, switch jobs. Santa Claus has a very different job. So hence his assistant gives Death notes about how to do his job. And he's like, maybe if you quit saying to the little children, "Cower, brief mortal," that might help. He's like, well, it works in my job. He's like, yeah, but you're not doing your regular job. You're the Hogfather. The Hogfather does not say that to children. I mean, valid notes. So again, this is one of his ways to examine these parts of our culture.
And why we need them. What is it they really represent, and why we need?
Why
to
is the
keep things?
Hogfather important? That's literally why they talk about it in the book. And that is where that wonderful quote comes from of, because humans need to believe in it in order for it to become a reality. This is what we do. Like, mercy is not a real thing. Justice is not real. It's something humans made up. But if they don't make up these things, how will they ever become real? These are valid points.
And it's such a good Christmas movie. I mean, and when the Hogfather disappears, all that belief in the Hogfather just starts pinging around the Discworld. And so little things people believe in start popping up into existence.
Such as a sock eater. I really felt that one.
Really, my favorite was the little gnome that lawn mows men's heads to make them go bald.
It's funny. I'm gonna laugh. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. It is funny.
But it's, of why we need things to believe in, because belief is the first part of making a better world.
Mm-hmm.
And also even why human has to solve it, why death can't solve this, even, And Death's like, no, I can't go there. I cannot interfere in this.
But his granddaughter is human. So she can.
She's a great nanny.
She became a really good teacher as well.
Yes. But yeah, like, you'll always be... The thing I like about most Terry Pratchett movies is you always end up with a nice surprise at the end of what was the story really about. It was a great adventure along the way, but there was a purpose at the end. What I really started to notice watching these, especially ones we'll talk about next hour, like Abominable Snow Baby, is that I think what people really like about Terry Pratchett stories is Terry Pratchett writes Discworld stories as fairy tales.
Mm-hmm.
And what I take that now to mean is to write a proper children's fairy tale, or in this case, one for all ages, because there's plenty for adults to get in these stories as well, is that you start with a mundane situation, an everyday situation, anything. And then it goes fantastical. It goes whimsical. It is truly surprising what happens next. And at the end, you've learned a lesson. So, like, if he is writing to a lesson, he has a way this is going to end to make this journey worth having taken. And I think that's what everyone in the end always feels gratified for finishing a story of Terry Pratchett's, is there was good lessons learned on this really fun adventure. I mean, good Omens as well. Like, it's a fun adventure, but there's some good lessons to take away and remember. Including, my favorite good lessons, my Good Omens lesson, that you can, in fact, intimidate houseplants into good behavior. I love that they actually spent over a week or two figuring out how to do this one effect from the book.
Yes.
Because it is actually very informative about the character in Good Omens.
They puppet all these different exotic houseplants in order to show the plant's reaction to how scary Crowley becomes, or can be, when he is disappointed in a houseplant's poor performance, i.e. it has a little browning. But it does actually illustrate various aspects of that character. And that's why it is actually a useful scene. I'm glad they kept it, though. It's also a fun scene.
But it is absolutely ridiculous. It is a whimsical scene, even in its, small amount of scariness.
Oh, it is. I genuinely was like, no, don't throw out the plant. Oh no, it's just a baby.
Yeah. But Terry Pratchett knew how to create whimsy. What's his name? Lost in Adaptation, Dom Noble just did one on Stardust. And was noting the difference between Neil Gaiman's story he wrote and the movie, and how a lot of the elements people like in the movie are scenes created especially for the movie. And it made it more whimsical. It made it far more enjoyable. It was no longer as much just a dark fairy tale. And I think that's what Terry Pratchett's good is. He kept it from ever getting too dark. There was always hope for betterment in Terry Pratchett's stories. Which I feel is really important to keep in your stories, to keep your main audience coming back. There has to be a little bit of hope, and eventually it pays off, even if it's not immediate. You're not sure how they're going to escape, and sometimes they don't. But for the most part, eventually things work out. And here's how it can work out, and things to take note in your own life. Why you need to always be prepared. Why, the many uses for a fireplace poker in home defense. As, Susan Death illustrates in Hogfather. Then you can show the monsters under the bed your authority with a good fireplace poker.
Yes. Yes, you can.
But yeah, when I was rewatching a bunch of these, I did take note of the whimsy. I didn't think about it before as whimsy. But to take a regular seeming situation and the fantastical suddenly to pop up.
So, the thing about whimsy, it can make the difficult to swallow go down easier.
I hear Bluey. I may have watched a bunch recently.
So there are, there's so many aspects of life that can be difficult to swallow, especially if you're writing for children, but even if you're writing for adults. Yes, the world is unfair. Yes, things don't always work out. And sometimes when they don't work out really badly. And when you don't want to, quote unquote, kill the vibe for your reader, if you interject a little bit of whimsy, it can make the difficult to swallow aspects a little bit easier to swallow. So that is one of the things I was going to bring up about one of the things I love about the Discworld novels is the whimsy. In case some of y'all have not yet picked up on this, I am a wildly whimsical person. Some people in real life find me a bit much.
Really? I didn't pick it up at all. Not one bit. No. Okay, for anyone out there that's watching this, that was sarcasm, okay?
But yes, I am a very whimsical person, and in part, I am whimsical because it helps me cope with, this world sucks. It is unfair. Why do I have to pay a vagina tax? I didn't even ask for this piece. And yet, I'm always paying this luxury tax. I'm paid less. I have to pay so much for hygiene products. And then people are constantly discounting what I say just because I happen to be a vagina owner. What? How does that have anything to do with my competency? And yet, they prefer a man to be in charge, i.e., I'm constantly paying a luxury tax on something I just ended up with. I frankly did not plan this through. There I am. I was born with it and was like, oh, okay, my bits are a little different. It's safer that it's tucked in a little hospital corner. So, sure, okay. And then I find out, oh, no, but you got to pay for it for the rest of your life. I did not know. And yet, like, so whimsy helps me cope with that. And Terry Pratchett also uses whimsy in a similar way to cope with when bad things happen to good people. When people's hearts are broken, or in one case, there's these little dragon-like creatures in Discworld.
Swamp dragons.
Swamp dragons. And they should not exist. They have a intestinal system that sometimes explodes on them, and they explode, and they are no more. It is not fair. They are adorable. So he has to deal with, he made these swamp dragons that aren't very good at being dragons, and frankly, they're not even very good at being alive, at least consistently. And yet, how do you cope with this? Well, the way you cope with it is you make it very whimsical. And so, like, they think that they are big, fierce dragons, even though they're little dragons. They, frankly, in my personal opinion, they're the equivalent of dachshunds, and I love them. And because dachshunds also think they are the biggest, baddest dogs on the planet. And especially if it's a mini dachshund, they are tiny. They're like 10 pounds of pure determination. And yet, because they think they are so badass, they intimidate enormous Great Danes. Who has ever heard of a 140-pound Great Dane ever being intimidated by a 10-pound miniature dachshund? But my mini dachshund did. Oh, and then how does she, when one Great Dane ignored her, when she was like, don't pet my back. I don't like that. Don't touch my back. Because she had a ruptured disc. What did she do to when he ignored that and he kept smacking her right above her tail? She jumped up and latched onto one ear like she was an enormous earring, and she did not let go as he ran around the dog park. Oh, let me tell you, he remembered to be afraid of dachshunds from then on. He was intimidated. So a certain amount of believing in whatever you are, even though it does not necessarily have any truth in the real world, it has a certain effect. It works for humans too. So, on that note, what should we talk about next when we come back from sprinting time?
I think the best way to talk about whimsy is the Abominable Snow Baby.
Okay.
Like, I love it as a little kid's story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it did just come out recently.
Yes.
But it gets to a lot of the key elements for writing a good story that I think we could all use, especially in such a short form. Like, it's an easy way to review the elements of a good story, as well as what makes it whimsical and fun and exciting.
Very nice. Well, we have come to that place where we're going to do a little sprinty sprint. A little bio break. Yes. I mean, I'm not into yappy dogs, but I like how dachshunds are like, look, don't mess with me. She was an amazing dog. She was her own person, y'all. She should have had American citizenship. I'm just saying. But anyhow, do you have something to drink? Is it snack time where you live? It may be snack time.
It's always snack time.
I think so. Tom got me these lovely little donut holes because for realsies, I love a real donut hole. So good. I don't understand why more people have not experienced donut holes. Do you know how many people I have met in my real life who are like, oh, I've never had a donut hole? And I'm like, you are an adult.
My husband doesn't even like them.
How do you?
What? I'm like, how is that possible? They're like the best part of the donut.
Exactly. And then when I found out Timbits, they make little filled donut holes, and I'm like, oh, perfection. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, if you don't have a snack, maybe now's the time. Yeah, I don't like yappers either. I'm going to be honest. And thankfully, dachshunds are not big yappers, unlike some of the other small dogs. And thankfully, we learn Cassie was really just a proximity alarm. Her yapping was in relation to how close somebody was on the property. So at least she was effective in her barking. Also, she would go hide in an azalea bush and bark at people, and they thought I had a Rottweiler hidden in the house. Because
seriously.
She learned how to bark in her chest. And, all dachshunds, no matter how small, are barrel-chested. So she learned how to drop her bark. Bark, bark, bark. She knew what she was doing, too. I mean...
That's a lot of dogs.
I hope that's donut holes.
Are we talking about dogs or donut holes? Like, what are we commenting on here?
This year, what? CB? All right. Good luck. How about getting a drink at the least? Lemonade, water, you name it. Writers need hydration, y'all. We'll see y'all back here in a couple minutes. And what will we talk about then, Tom? We'll talk about Abominable Snow Baby.
And writing fairy tales. How to properly write a fairy tale for children and adults.
And yeah, I do not want to discount we are also talking about writing for adults, not just YA and chapter books. Although you certainly can. That's the wonderful thing about Terry Pratchett. He's easy to transition. And also I know a lot of middle school children who love reading regular Discworld novels and who did not find it difficult to read. Like, the reading level's not too hard, is what I'm trying to say. It's very, his stuff's very readable, which is not to say it's super easy or you feel like it's dumbed down. It's not that at all. It's just he has a very readable style. So
he's very good about context clues.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's unfamiliar terms, he will give context. And occasionally for, novel words, he will give definitions.
Which I will go into when I inadvertently learned that I had the same background as Terry Pratchett, and that is why so many people were making references to my writing was very similar to Terry Pratchett. And so I will explain that and how you too can learn from that for yourself if you would like to adopt a more readable style of writing. So we will see y'all in a few minutes. Bye-bye. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Welcome back.
To answer the question you had about Jen, it was a herd of small dogs.
Slap dogs. I heated up an empanada. They're so good, y'all.
I'm finishing up this breakfast cookie. It's kind of dry.
I love Shipley's empanadas. Oh my god.
I've never had one, actually.
Really?
Really.
I thought there were Shipley's all over Texas. So
there is. We just have not gone into one yet.
Stephanie,
don't know why. We just haven't.
Tragic.
You need to do it. It's worth it. And get donut halls and empanadas.
All right. As I have a whole list of like places I want to check out food wise, because don't go to Texas if you want to lose weight. No.
Oh boy, barbecue, brisket in Texas. Oh god.
I've had like barbecue and brisket like around like Houston area and around Dallas. Now my next area I want to try their barbecue is Austin.
Yes, that is where I've had Texas barbecue, literally at the watering hole. Oh god, it was absolutely worth the wait.
Everyone tells me, like, hey, you should go to the watering hole. You should go to the watering hole.
But don't go to the watering hole hungry.
What?
Because you're going to be there an hour and a half to 2 hours before you finally get food. So go
have a snack. Have a little snack.
Have a snack before. Order like you're starving, because by the time the food gets there, you will be.
Okay. All right.
But I mean, there's a lot of really great outdoor seating. So honestly, it's a nice place to be while you wait 2 hours to get food. The food, though, is like absolutely worth the wait. Like, I was like, okay, I've never had food be worth this kind of wait. And I literally asked every single person who got seated in our area, it was like, have you been here before? And they're like, almost everybody was like, yeah. Is it worth this wait? We've been here an hour. And they're like, oh, you have another hour to go. Like, why do y'all come back? And they're like, oh, it is worth the wait. It's like, are you sure?
My problem is like I really like brisket, but either half the time the places have dry brisket and really good pulled pork, or really good brisket and then bad, not like bad, but like a little on the drier side pulled pork. Right. I like pulled pork and I like brisket. I just haven't been able to find many places.
Watering hole. That is like the two things I think that they do best is brisket and pulled pork. So as I said, it's outside of Austin, Texas. It like it is. You are like, I think at some point now. Okay, all right. In all honesty, the last time I went to the watering hole was, I don't know, 13 years ago. I was married back then, just to give you an idea. But like, I think at a certain point we were following the directions to get there, and it really was turned off the paved road. And I was like, where the hell are we going? And we are driving out. There's no cell phone reception. Now, there may be now, but like 13, 14 years ago, there's no, and like I was warned ahead of time, there's no cell phone reception, so bring a book or something. And I'm glad they told, because what I did bring was I brought a magazine and a newspaper to read. And that saved, because my then husband did not bring anything to read. And then he was a cranky little, and so it helped that I could give him reading material. Here, read the funnies. Calm down. But as I said, every single other person seated in our seating area was like, had been there before and was like, the food is absolutely worth it. Even on the bad days, the food is still really good. And I got the brisket. My then husband got the pulled pork. We both tried each other's. Both were absolutely excellent. Some people said the chicken, but other people said sometimes the chicken is dry. So, but the brisket and the pulled pork are great at the watering hole. Highly recommend. Give it a try. The only thing I'll say is definitely order the sauce on the side, because what if you don't like the sauce or it's too spicy?
Yeah, I always get the sauce on the side just because you never know. I never know what my taste buds are going to be that day anyway, so I always get the sauce on the side.
I am glad I ordered sauce on the side, mostly because they don't actually sauce it that much. And so, but I got a ton of sauce. So, and I like mine saucy. Like, and it was spicy, but it was like good spicy. It wasn't like my lips are numb spicy. It was just regular, nice Texas spicy.
Like black pepper spicy?
I'd say a little bit more spicy than that. Like, I would say more spicy than Chula. So, but not too much more spicy than Chula. Like, it was a nice little kind of a burn in the back of the throat. I enjoyed it. Their sides are okay, but honestly, it's the smoked meats that are the best there. So give that a try. It's honestly the best barbecue I've ever had in Texas. I stand by that one too. So definitely give it a try, but honestly, you go when you're prepared to be there for several hours because it just takes that long to get your food.
All right. Thanks for that warning.
Yes, I was warned as well, and I'm really grateful I was warned. But like, I also had just about everything I ate in Austin, Texas was so good. The breakfast tacos were off the chain.
That's okay. So we were watching. You ever seen that show, Somebody Feed Phil? It's on like Netflix.
Yeah, I've watched a couple episodes. Yes.
Well, they did one where they were doing like a barbecue episode, and part of the episode was Austin, Texas barbecue. So, and they did the watering hole there.
Yes.
So I heard, and then I looked it up, and a lot of reviews were like, "It's worth the wait. Bring something to do. Bring a coloring book. Take a nap."
People do. People literally take a nap.
I mean, if they have outdoor seating, I think
they have a ton, or at least they used to when I went. Like, they literally had an acre of seating available.
Wow.
And they had all of these bespoke made wooden tables and other tables that had been made for there so that they fit exactly where they went, because since it's outdoor seating, it's like seating on the ground, not like you're seated on the ground, but and so since a lot of the seating is under trees and there's roots, and that's why some of the legs are a little short, but because it's bespoke for that spot. And it's just, honestly, when the sun set, oh my God, it was just gorgeous out there. It's just
I've never seen an ugly sunset in Texas. Like, my phone is filled up with like 50,000 pictures. And my kids are like, "Are you taking pictures?" Yes, I'm taking pictures of sunset. And I will take a picture of sunrise and of the smoky clouds and of the rain clouds every day. Because I've been there. I was almost there a whole year, and it's still excellent.
Yeah. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And so, and we went for the early, they said it really gets so full. Like, if you get there at the time we were told, it's a Saturday night, which I think is when we went. But like they said, if you get there at 7, you're going to be there 4 hours waiting for food. So get there early. So we left so we could be there at around 5. But we did not account for drive off the paved road. And so we were going slow. So we didn't get there till almost 5:30. And even then we still had a 2-hour wait. So we were there when the sun set, and it was just so gorgeous. And then the crowds arrived right at the end of the sunset. And it really did sound like one of those African watering hole documentaries. Like, with everybody chitter-chattering and talking, and people bring their own coolers full of drinks, and they essentially are tailgating at a restaurant. It's the wildest thing.
That's hilarious.
It is so much fun though, so highly recommend. Yeah. Also, as I said, the breakfast tacos in Austin, Texas, so good. I was not even into breakfast tacos before I had breakfast tacos in Austin, Texas. I have had tacos that people called breakfast tacos before, and had them went hard pass. I've had them in Arizona, and had breakfast tacos, and was like, yeah, this is nothing to write home about. This is.
I don't think I've ever had a breakfast taco. I've had breakfast burritos of my ham and egg and cheese wrapped up in a tortilla that I make at home, but I don't think I've ever actually had a real breakfast taco.
With chorizo and scrambled eggs and peppers and onions and Stiff. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
it sounds good, but
Yeah.
I
Oh,
haven't had one.
because honestly, Texas chorizo is so good. There is no comparison. I am so sorry, New Mexico, but y'all made me sad with your chorizo. Like, I love New Mexico bathrooms so much. You just don't even know. Like, they are the cleanest bathrooms I've ever experienced in my entire life in a public place. I absolutely adore New Mexico for their scrubbed clean bathrooms. God bless y'all. But your chorizo is sad as hell. And I feel like you really need to like get with Jesus on this. So yeah, so these are my very frank opinions from when we've traveled.
Well, we've been through New Mexico like 3 or 4 times in the last 4 years, and we found like at the rest areas and welcome centers and like other restaurants, they were not the cleanest.
Oh no, things have gone downhill since I
A
left.
little bit downhill. Like half
this
the rest
was
areas are closed.
2009, 2010.
So like I always have my husband go in the bathroom first, because if the boys' bathroom is horrendous and the girls' bathroom is going to be horrendous.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the smell, how's it looking? And he's like, yeah, don't go in there, because you know my daughter is bug phobic, so if there's any kind of weird stuff in there, we just don't go in there.
Have you tried Love's Truck Stops?
Yes, we like those. Those are really clean. We prefer Love's over Flying J.
Yes, me
But
too.
we prefer Buc-ee's over anything.
I know, we're getting a Buc-ee's in the state, and I cannot wait. As soon as it opens, I'm like, let's go to Buc-ee's.
Where's it
It's
opening
going to be in
up at?
Gulfport on the coast.
On I-10.
Oh,
On I-10. And so I'm very excited. They're literally like extending part of I-10 for the Buc-ee's they're putting in Gulfport, Mississippi. So I'm very excited. I can't wait to try like Buc-ee's brisket.
We try to get there early for like their breakfast, but we always end up like missing it. And so I always get their diced brisket sandwiches.
Nice.
They're heavenly. They're like, they're not cheap, but still, we don't go there all the time. But you know, that's my son's favorite thing is their biscuit and egg sandwiches. So
I've heard really good things about Buc-ee's, so I'm looking forward to going. But like, we do have a Love's here in South Mississippi, and that is where whenever I'm really down, like having a really bad like mental health time, and Tom will like, let's go to Love's. We'll get a roller dog because I have a weakness for roller dogs. And what Tom's really doing is setting me up because he knows that every man at Love's truck stop will flirt with me for no apparent reason, and that it makes me feel very good. And some of the women too. Honestly, like a lot of people flirt with me, and I mean, like, and this is not maybe they're just being nice to you, Glory. Oh no, this was very much a what are you doing tomorrow night? Do you live around here? Kind of flirt, like, and yeah, so sometimes Tom is like, go get a roller dog. I'm sure there's thirsty men inside. Like, okay.
They wish to discuss condiments.
Yeah. Oh, seriously. Condiments and coffee, because that's what I go to Love's for, at least here in South Mississippi, is their roller hot dogs, which are really good, and their coffee. I love Love's coffee.
Do you mean like the roller hot dogs? The hot dogs are in that thing that the
and the tray that goes back and forth.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a roller.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, that. Is that what you call a roller hot dog? Okay. Those are really delicious. I like having nacho cheese on them. With
Have I, in fact, looked up how much this machine is on Amazon to put in my, like, fantasy kitchen? Yes, I have.
How much is it, Glory?
It's about $500.
That's fine.
I know. It's totally within my financial ability and my fantasy mind of my kitchen. Yes. But, like, think about it. I could bring it out for parties. We could have like 4th of July grills and everybody could just get their own hot dog off the roller machine. Like, this is the fantasy, y'all. And you know, it's in my head. Anyway.
Question. Do you have room for it in your kitchen now?
Oh, do you know how tiny my kitchen is? There are larger kitchens in trailers than this.
Are you sure about that? Because
Yeah, because I grew up in single wide and double wide trailers, and they had bigger
okay.
kitchens than this.
Gotcha.
This, where we live,
Not fifth wheels.
this
Okay.
building was actually based off a floor plan for, what is it? Cabin condo housing for vacation homes. And they built it here, and I don't know why. They built it in a suburb, and literally a subdivision is this building. But so it meant to be a little vacation home. And so it has the teeny tiniest little galley kitchen ever. I've seen larger camp kitchens than this. So that is what I work with. So essentially our pantry is the entire dining area, because again, the dining area is so teeny tiny. So that's the whole pantry.
To give you an idea, it's got a 2-basin sink, and the counter space is 3 basin sinks worth.
Total.
For
total. In the whole kitchen.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fine. You just
So the microwave is on one of those counters, so that already, yeah, because the microwave takes up the whole counter.
Gotcha.
Just to give you an idea, and it's not an extra big microwave; it's just a normal microwave. But anyway, Terry Pratchett. When I lived at home, there was a rollover restaurant 3 towns over, and they used to do mozzarella sticks instead of baguette. If I wasn't off bread for life, I'd figure out how to do that. Oh yeah, that sounds good.
That sounds good.
Sounds real good.
Like that.
The other day, Tom found these hot dog buns I can actually eat from Sara Lee Artigiano hot dog buns. And they don't have any of the chemicals in there I can't eat. So it's really good, by the way. You can buy it at a grocery store.
I've had them. I can eat those without issues.
Oh, see, there you go. And
wow.
I put a couple thick slices of smoked Gouda in there, wrapped it up in aluminum foil, put it in my toaster oven for 20 minutes. Oh, that was heaven. I highly recommend.
That sounds good.
Because Gouda isn't super melty. So it warmed up. It got very warm and it was very soft, but it wasn't like, how mozzarella will go everywhere.
Right.
So it held its space mostly. I mean, like if you squeeze it, it'll go everywhere. But yeah, so it was so good. Highly recommend. Give it a try if you ever come across some good smoked Gouda.
So I've been making like lazy grilled cheese sandwiches in the toaster oven, mayonnaise and then cheese, bread. And while I did have the tray wrapped up in aluminum foil, but I needed to change, so I took it off and then I put the bread directly on there. And now the toaster oven smells like it's burning every time because some of the cheese dripped onto the heat.
Yeah,
I'll clean it eventually.
It'll eventually burn off. We've done that before. I think it takes about 2 months.
A good substitute for mozzarella that doesn't run much is Munster.
Yes.
That's good cheese.
Munster's really good. Highly recommend. Yeah, give it a try. Give Munster and smoked Gouda a try. Yeah. Y'all just live your best life. If you can eat cheese, eat the cheese.
But okay, so back to Terry Pratchett.
I like our food talk. It's fine. No.
Cheese talk. Okay, that's the danger one. It's hard to give up. Cheese talk. But like what I really enjoyed with The Abominable Snow Baby is that it does really lay out the fairy tale format of where we start in a regular town and we have this guy who works, I think he's a bell ringer or something. He's in a little multi-story building.
Mm-hmm.
And then just one day, so much snow falls. Like it covers the houses mostly. And
it covers them up at least to the first story. Story.
Of like it's getting into the second story. There's so much snow. And so to truly make it whimsical, we now have him and several other citizens digging tunnels across the town to find each other. Like it starts normal. And then we immediately get to this whimsical piece of like, but what would you do if this happened? And if you ever do storytelling with children, this is the kind of story development you see, is this really surprising, big fantastical ideas, and then what do we do next? And I really feel like adults, as we get older, we don't realize how much our thinking shrinks,
Mm-hmm.
and our ideas get smaller and smaller for what we think is believable and achievable. And it helps sometimes in our stories to have whimsy, to just, what's the big possibility? What's the big fun? Let's not be concerned with, what's realistic. This is for fun. This is entertainment. So yeah, they're digging, tunnels under, and they find each other because one of the neighbors is a former opera singer, and she's just singing along as a little old lady digging a tunnel of her own. And then after the town meets and they all, essentially group together so they can all have a little more security, one of them says that, a monster has appeared and, was there at the trash bins. And I really feel like it illustrates with the characters what Gloria talked about, that that script doctor professor discussed of, a jaw-dropping change. And so you literally get the characters dropping their jaws of like, it was a what? It's like, it must have been 15, it was 5 meters tall, because this is in England.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was huge, and it was going to attack me, and I ran. And so they go back, and it's not there. And it's like, we must find it. But, you get that true, like, jaw-dropping, oh no moment.
Mm-hmm.
The snow is not the jaw-dropping moment. But a lot of people would get confused on that. Of like, no, this is just a surprise. It's a change. But it just not. No one's dropping their jaws of, oh no. But when they hear about this creature, oh. And then they meet it, and it's a baby. It is a 3 meter tall, it's still huge, abominable snowman baby. And it is lost. And the little old lady is now wanting to treat it as a pet. She crochets a collar for it. And we see the problem with giant pets is they are much bigger, and you cannot control and look after them.
Right, because look at Clifford, the big red dog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, also, you just can't control babies.
A giant baby, like anyone who's had them knows, oh, that is a nightmare scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, the second movie, or his third, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Oh yeah, the toddler that got blown up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Honey, I Shrunk the Kid.
I think
Blew
it's
Up the
the second
Kid,
one.
And then I Shrunk Ourselves.
Yeah, that's
Which
right.
one's third? I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah, I remember that one and the whole.
Like a giant baby is an intimidating situation to deal with. And we see how everyone responds. This is just a short story. The cartoon is, less than 30 minutes. It's a great little, it was just released for Christmas. It was a cute little Christmas story. And then the next day, the baby disappears. And the snow is gone. And that's where we see a proper second jaw-dropping moment. The baby has made a snow statue of the little old lady who took him in. And I can't remember at this point how it played out, because I watched it too late and I may have fallen asleep right after that moment.
The mother shows up.
Oh, okay.
She's tearing through the town looking for her baby. And mother got found baby. And then the mother took Granny with her to the cave. And the grandson then had to go after Granny. But when he got there, Granny was fine. It's just this abominable snow woman is a new mother. She just needed a little help. She was just missing some confidence, and also the baby had wandered off. So, but they were fine.
But yeah, like we get two true proper jaw-dropping. Oh no, they're missing now. we get those expressions in these people, so you don't have to even be curious, like how shocked and worried are they. And it's another surprise, but it's always fantastical and whimsical to see what the next event is. And I really like it for that, to kind of remind us about, in our storytelling, whimsical is okay. And I was actually thinking about, like, I think that's also like what draws a lot of Stephen King audience back to Stephen King stories, is they are dark, but they are also whimsical.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastical, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But if you look at the way the story progresses, it is whimsical. It is truly, what happened? Type responses, but you go along with it because the adventure is so much fun. And, I love that you can see all of these elements play out so quickly in this story. Because that is, again, at least for my personal taste and preference, what I would love to see in more stories is that whimsical element of a real surprising turn of events, and not in a horrible way, but just a way that is unexpected. You're like, this would never happen in real life. It mostly never. Occasionally, weird stuff does happen, including you go to sleep one night and the next morning you wake up and there's 8 to 10 feet of snow.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that can happen.
And now you've got to dig a little tunnel out for your little small dog, who's like, I am not going inside the house, but it is too cold out there. I need, grass. And there are videos of people who've had to do this, where literally there is now a little piece of grass outside the door that they have dug out. Mm-hmm. All the snow, while they are snowed in.
Yep.
And also, what is a fairy tale? It is where the fantastical element shows up and the regular characters react, and how do they survive in a suddenly fantastical world? Because we've got our own ideas, but what do they do? And again, I think it's those elements we sometimes forget of what it is that brings people to these stories we write. Is the surprise, the novel, the curiosity. And the more we can always keep that in mind and bring it to our stories, the more enjoyable I think they can become.
So, for the most part, I was trained as an adult to write for newspapers. And the vast majority of writing classes that I experienced were intended for journalism. So they're very much fact-based, matter of fact, being easy to read while being informative. Also, quite honestly, it's good. The same advice is very good if you're going to write papers for college. So, this same style of factual, readable nonfiction is Terry Pratchett's style of writing Discworld novels. And that is in part why I think he and I are often, when people read my stuff and they're already familiar with Terry Pratchett, they're like, you write very similar to Terry Pratchett. It's not intentional. I was already writing that way. It's because Terry Pratchett writes like a journalist, telling stories about fantasy world, Discworld.
Interjection real quick.
Mm-hmm.
One element I think is also important from a journalist writing style that also really defines, and I think fiction writers could really learn from, is what's it called? The upside down pyramid or inverted pyramid storytelling, where you lead with the most interesting elements and you slowly build out the details as you write your article. But if you don't grab their attention immediately and tell them why they need to read this, they're not going to continue just reading any story. And I also feel like that also really informed Glory's writing style. That really helped improve it, and why people took note and people like both her fiction and her nonfiction is this: you only get more details once you are invested in the story.
Well, in journalism, you are supposed to lead your article with the lead. So the LEDE, the lead. Maybe it's LED. Is it?
No, it's LEDE.
And that is, what is the most important sentence you can say about this article you're about to write? Like, what is the thing that anyone reading your newspaper article or whatever, your magazine article, whatever, like most needs to know? So, for example, let us say there was a meeting of the Garden Society of your town. Okay, so how do you start the paragraph? So you got your first paragraph, right? You got to write something. What do you start with? You start with whatever was the most important or noteworthy aspect of that meeting, or whatever, on your reporting. And maybe it's that the Garden Society of your town has banned tulips from the competition, the landscape competition. And this was hotly debated and several people walked out. So you're going to want to write a sentence about the tulip ban. How can you ban tulips in a town that has literally made their money from growing bulbs, tulip bulbs? How could you ban it? I don't know. I'm making stuff up here. Although I heard something similar. Anyway, that's a whole nother matter. But my point just being, you lead with the lead. So you're going to have, in a highly controversial decision, the Flower Society of our town has banned tulips from being eligible for landscape competition in this year's new judging. 6 people walked out of the meeting and said they would never return and will be turning in their resignations. All right, so that's the most important part. Now, were other things discussed at this meeting? Sure. They discussed how they were so thankful that Cheryl made baked goods for the refreshment table. And they discussed how they're very grateful to last year's president of the society for loaning them the use of her garage to have this meeting. And, I don't know, some other things like people. Then there was a nice little informative talk on growing irises. All of those things happen. That is not what you lead with. You lead with the most important thing. And the lead has to be in the first paragraph. This is how I was taught to write for newspapers. I want to make this very clear. When you are writing anything, but particularly short stories, that's called a hook. That lead, what is the most important thing that happened on the thing you're reporting? In fiction, it's called a hook. You need to put a hook in the first paragraph of your short story. If you're working on novel length, then you definitely need a hook on the first page. I know other people say, need it within the first 6 pages. I don't understand who those people are. They don't want you to sell novels. You need to have it on the first page. And if you ask me what you need to do, you need to have it in the first paragraph, just as if you were writing an article versus a novel. I realize you're writing a novel. And do you have to write the most, like this hook, this very cool hook, in like the very first day of you writing this novel? Absolutely not. But you are not done editing until you have put a really good hook, definitely on that first page of your novel, let alone preferably that first paragraph. It had better be by the second paragraph, though. Why? There's a really good reason. And it's the same reason why I was told in journalism, you have to put it in the first paragraph. And here it is. Ain't nobody got time for your nonsense. And what I mean is people literally do not have the patience, and they are not going to give you that. So you need to hook them immediately, or you will not be able to pull up a fish. And in this case, I mean a reader. So, in newspapers, that's why the first paragraph needs to contain the lead. And in fiction, the first paragraph of whatever you're writing, no matter how short or long it is, needs to have a hook. It needs to have something. Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents, grumbled Joe. Yes, it is a wonderful. And guess who also was trained for journalism? Louisa May Alcott. So
there's also a second thing that the hook and that first paragraph should do in a good story or even a good article. And that is, it contextualizes what you're about to read. It tells you what the subject is, and so what you should pay attention. One of the biggest complaints I hear in fiction with the stories people did not finish is that the story changed after a certain point.
mm-hmm.
And so what they thought was important no longer is important. Why did they even read that then? And they just put it down because they were promised one story and now they're on to another story. And go on. Let's say, and you need to, essentially give them the context for this particular story that they're here for.
So I want to point out that almost every bit of writing advice I am ever going to say or have ever said on my channel, it is heavily influenced by all of my various backgrounds in writing. And that includes the fact that my first published novel was when I was 15, or not novel, but it was a cookbook when I was 15. And so I just want to make this abundantly clear. Of course, advice is just that, something you can take or leave. And you will not hurt my feelings if you ignore everything that ever comes out of my mouth. I mean, I may be like, well, this is kind of a boring story. But, like, you're not going to hurt me. I'm going to live fine, okay? I'm going to keep moving forward in my life. I'll be all right. Don't you worry about me. I'm only sharing this because it has worked for me. And I think it is general enough of advice that it will work for most people most of the time. Does that mean that it will always work? Well, I'm sure that there are situations where various aspects of this writing advice may not work that well for you. But to be perfectly honest, most of the things that I talk about pretty much have always worked for me. So one of the things I found was that learning how to write like a journalist, starting in middle school, because my mother was also trained to write in a more journalistic style, because those were the college classes she took, that is how she trained me to write papers for school. And I got to be honest, y'all, when it comes to the papers that I turned in, I got A's and B's on everything. I didn't get D's. I didn't even get C's. And when I got to college, it was the same thing. I got A's and B's, and frankly, most of my papers got A's. If I got a B, it was because I forgot to include like a whole section one time because ADHD is real and I was tired and I had put it off too long. But like, it was due to gross technical issues, not for my lack of writing style. And in fact, I usually got bonus points on my papers, and they would specifically say, I love your writing voice, or this is a very enjoyable read. I look forward to your future papers in this class. Like, that was the one thing I would get again and again. So this has definitely worked for me. Also, I have been published in newspapers and various magazines. So I have been paid for my printed works. So I just want to point out like my background, and that I am telling you this because I profited off of this. I got good grades. I got paid money. I got more writing jobs. Like, that's why I'm saying this. So here I'm going to go and I'm going to say it again. Your hook is usually an emotional line. That is what is hooking people. Readers are looking for an emotional adventure. No matter your genre, no matter what fiction you are writing, They are looking for an emotional roller coaster to go with you. That is why they're reading your stuff. They are looking for something, and specifically, they want it mostly emotional and less intellectual. Like if you want intellectual, you could read journal articles, you could read journal papers. No, they want an emotional adventure. Even if we're talking about a romance, or we're talking about science fiction or fantasy or a mystery or police procedural, ultimately, readers are always looking for the same thing, an emotional adventure. Now, depending on your genre, it could look a little different, okay? Like the emotional adventure of a romance is a little bit different from, say, a cozy mystery emotional roller coaster, or even a police procedural emotional roller coaster, or a science fiction or a fantasy emotional roller coaster. They're all going to look a little different. You know, the ups and downs are going to be a little different. The beats are going to change, but it's still an emotional adventure. And so you need to start in the first paragraph with, here, I'm going to hit you. Because why? You need to prove to your reader you are going to give them a payoff. So, and you have to do it by fulfilling the promise from the very start. First paragraph, here's your first emotional line. And it could be anything from, as CB had, where's that one from Louise May Alcott? Thank you. Christmas won't be Christmas without any presents. Ooh, that's emotional thought every one of us have ever had in our entire lives. What do you mean we might have a Christmas with no presents? Is that possible? Can you have a Christmas? Is it Christmas without presents? Every child has this thought at some point in their life. So again, it's a very relatable, but it's also an emotional line. And if we're not sure, the part about Joe grumbling it. So we know Joe's not thrilled about this, of course. So immediately we know Joe is relatable. That Joe is like all of us, because everybody wants something for Christmas. I mean, we all try to be good, or at least there were times where we did not say our thoughts to somebody who maybe sorely deserved it in the last 3 months before Christmas. At some point, every one of us has held our tongue, and frankly, deep down in our hearts, we all believe we deserve a present for that. We have father and mother and each other. Yes, oh, Beth, such a goody two-shoes, but she meant it sincerely, so we'll forgive her.
I do want to bring up though another thing though, for especially those who are just working on this technique.
Mm-hmm.
That is how Gloria and I cut our teeth on learning this technique.
Mm-hmm.
Was editing our mother's work.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what we always noticed about her writing and her short stories was oftentimes, yeah, she would try her best to have that emotional hook in the first paragraph. But as she wrote it, and you're going through, we would find it somewhere in the middle of the short story.
Oh, yes. It's called burying the lead. Quit burying the lead, Patty.
And so all that would happen is, you know, in the editing, we move the lead to the beginning, and the paragraphs that come before, we look if they now have context in this article, or do we need to just, you know, remove them if they're not superfluous to the story. Often we would move them towards the end.
I want you all to think about somebody telling you a story at some point in your life. Somebody has told you a story, and halfway through they dropped a bomb on you. And that's how my grandma died. Like, wait, what?
Oh, I was so guilty. I'm so guilty of this
God,
one.
Tom is the lead barrier in this family. Okay?
Yeah.
I call him the mortician. Because he buries so many leads. He just has a graveyard of leads. They're all underground, Tom. Please, somebody will dig them up for the zombie apocalypse.
There's a reason I want to tell this to you.
But does he say the most important line? The thing so I will stay for his whole rambly story? No. I love Tom. But everybody knows somebody who has told you a story like this, where halfway through, or even 3/4, or almost at the very end, they finally drop the big thing of like, why didn't you tell me that from the start? That this is like how you lost your leg. Like, so again, I would like to point out what your readers really want. And it doesn't matter what kind of reader. It could be nonfiction reader. It could be your professor. It could be your fiction reader. It could be any reader. What your reader really wants is in the first paragraph for you to, real subtle like, tell them why they should keep reading. And yes, you can technically just say, this is why you should read this story. But there are better ways to phrase it. And with more experience, you will get better at phrasing it more subtle, like such as, so I remember there was, oh God, I love golden age science fiction short stories. You know, back when there were like 100+ science fiction magazines that went out monthly, most of them. And like there was such a huge industry in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It was so cool. I love those short stories. And there was one that the opening paragraph starts with, I woke up and my head was hurting and my back felt cold. Search for my wallet. Where's my wallet? Have I been mugged? The world hadn't quite come into focus yet for me. And I'm like, yes, have you been mugged? I need to know now. And that was the hook that got me. Was this a great hook? No. Did it matter? No, I kept reading because I needed to know. Have you been mugged? What happened? Are you in your bed and you just like are really disoriented? I need to know now what happened. It doesn't have to be a great hook, but it does need to be a real hook. The new opening of my current work in progress. Panic, anger, and hatred flooded through me. My eyes bugged out. My hands flew to my hips, and I glared expectantly at Councilwoman Holly. What did you say? I spat. Very nice.
Of note, it's all emotional.
Yeah.
That
is what you need to do. That is what readers want. Satisfy their wants. They will reward you with purchasing your next book, giving you an A, hopefully. Or at least a B, I mean, depending on your technical skills and your paper. But give them what they want. And what they want is they want an emotional hook to entice them to keep reading. They need something to look forward to. It's even better if there's a question mark. Like if it's maybe, maybe not, no promises, because then there's a question and they're like looking for the answer. It's fun. And yes, this works even for nonfiction, even for college papers. I want you to keep that in mind, that asking the question in the first paragraph that you absolutely will answer by the end of your article or your paper that you're writing for your professor, if you answer it, you will get points. I promise you this. Because it's something that I've actually gotten bonus points for. I had no idea how many other college students professors have to deal with that don't actually answer the question they posit at the beginning of their paper. And I'm like, what in the blazes? But it's one thing that Terry Pratchett was very good at. And you see it in everything he writes. Every book, every short story, he starts with an emotional hook, and he also is sure to include a question, a premise, something so that you have something to look forward to. So, yes, if you would like to write like Terry Pratchett, that is a very important part of it, is you start with an emotional hook, and quite frankly, every couple pages, you need to hook them again. You need to have another emotional hook in there. Something they can relate to. Again, they are here for the emotional adventure. They are not here to like intellectualize about how the industrial train systems used to. Who cares? Who cares? They are here for the adventure. And if you just so happen to teach them everything you know about the industrial train revolution, great. But they are here for the adventure.
Or everything you've learned about theology. Small gods.
You can write about anything and teach someone else, teach your reader, whatever it is you know. Maybe you know about plants. Maybe you know about cooking. What is it? Like Water for Chocolate. Okay, that is a wild book. And movie. Oh my God, movie's so wild. And it is weird. And let me tell you, I had a bit of a I had a bit of a sexual awakening in middle school when I watched that movie by myself in the middle of the night. I'm just saying. Thanks, HBO and Cinemax. But I want to point out that what I really got out of the translated book, because it's written in, I think, Mexican Spanish. What I really got out of the translated book was I learned a lot about cooking Mexican cuisine. Like literal procedures on how to do this, which I was not familiar with before because I was a teenager. I have learned so much about the minutia of Mexican cuisine preparation. That was not why I was reading the book, y'all. I was reading the book because the movie was hot. It was weird, it was surreal, but it was hot. And that was honestly, I was a horny teenager. Okay, I mean, it was the truth. So that's why I was reading the book. And instead, I mean, yes, there were some hot scenes, but mostly what I got was how to prepare Mexican cuisine. I've learned it. It's cool. I'm glad I know now. I'm never going to forget it because it's tied in with a lot of racy scenes. There's a lot of scantily clad people grasping each other deliciously in the kitchen in that novel. It's very hot.
Oddly, now thinking about it, I think also what you've just described is the same reason why in the 80s action movies there is invariably a training montage.
Mm-hmm.
It serves the same purpose, which is you get this dopamine hit of watching someone else get better at something.
Mm.
And it helps if you actually know about it, that what you're writing, so you can describe it functionally and accurately, like a person actually doing it is. But you get to, because the way reading works, you are experiencing what they experience. You get to experience that dopamine too. And so you're actually rewarded for reading about them getting better at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why we want to go on this emotional journey. Is, yeah, you could read a technical book to learn how to do something or watch a video. But if you read about it and you read the feelings they had while they learned this, you get those feelings and emotions too.
Mm-hmm.
You get all the positive rush of learning. And again, I think it's something else people don't, give enough credence to. Of like, that is why I think part of what makes cozy mysteries so appealing is, the food they make and the emotions they experience with the food, or what they experience in the homes, the hygge, and those other just experiential moments that normally you have to travel somewhere to get, you can get in these books. And that's why readers keep coming back to them.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, we're going to take another break. And Stephanie is going to leave because she got things to do, y'all.
Yes, I do have things to do. We are finally able to leave this snowpack park in the morning. So that means
yes,
cleaning dishes and sweeping the floor and doing stuff I don't want to have to do first thing in the morning. So
it was lovely having you, Stephanie. I hope to see you again soon.
I hope so too.
Good luck with the snow. I do not envy you that. I do like living below the snow belt. I have to admit, as much as I love snow, I don't like driving through it. So
I thought I liked snow until I lived in Reno for 2 years when I was a teenager. And then I said, I hate it worse than listening to people click their nails or chew their food or talk with their mouth open with food in it. Anyways, I hate it. I hate it more than anything else.
Yes. Well, I hope you get back down to the land below the snow belt sometime soon.
That's the plan. Hopefully next month or so we'll be back down in Texas.
And if you ever get to the watering hole, do let me know about your experience, good or bad. I'd love to hear about it. So
I might even videotape my whole experience.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Like, hey, come check this out.
Yes.
Have fun. Eat some tacos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take a nap.
Take a nap. Watch the sunset and then take a nap while you wait for food.
Right. All right.
All right.
See you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Loser time.
Hey, Eva.
Yeah.
So what do we have left to talk about? We still haven't talked about Wyrd Sisters.
How to do Macbeth the right way.
Also, I mean, definitely one of your favorite subgenres of fiction, of the taking
Retellings.
Hmm?
Retellings.
retellings from side character perspectives.
Mm.
Of essentially truly reframing the entire story from another point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And showing that there's a lot of interest in that, you know, as a writer, you do have to just choose what your POV is.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you end up with 1,200 pages in need of a really good editor. But yeah, like this, it shows how well you can recontextualize and retell a story from a very different perspective, and it is also compelling. It's
Mm-hmm.
also fascinating, and it's a totally different way of seeing it. All the pages are in need of an editor.
We are talking specifically about Wyrd Sisters, which is the novel as well as the name of the animated limited series, if you will. And which I believe that's one of the two that you can watch on YouTube.
Yes. I think both of the animated ones, Wyrd Sisters and Soul Music, are both on YouTube. But Soul Music was the very first one to be turned into a series for TV, and they were definitely still learning. It drags.
It needs some editing.
Yeah. But Wyrd Sisters does a really good job of retelling in a different, location this story, but from the perspective of the witches. And how, you know what, they are not going to let things just work out as they may. They are going to make some choices and make sure it turns out for the better. Remember, being passive in any situation just gives power to the person who's already in power.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a neutral action. And so we see with them of like how do they take action? Because they know they are not actually the direct main people in the story. They cannot just take over. Which is what I enjoy, is you can't just, go break down the door and go, you're bad, I'm good, I'm running this. It doesn't work that way.
That is the work of tyrants.
And so they go about finding, those that would be better in these positions and get them into the position and get those who are really bad at it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going for functional here, not heroic. Although, in classic Terry Pratchett style, you do not see the ending coming for who is best at this position to rule.
Yes, there is a lovely twist at the end.
especially if you're just sort of getting into it and you want to check out, like, would you like Terry Pratchett's style? Wyrd Sisters is another good one to see. Do you like this type of storytelling? Where it's taking a fairy tale concept and redoing it. Because, I mean, there's ghosts. There's ghosts with opinions. Very frustrating ghosts.
Interesting retelling of blending Hamlet and Macbeth. It's not a bad rendition of both, honestly. I definitely have some issues with Macbeth, the original story. And so this definitely made it more palatable.
Mm-hmm.
And, not sad with the ejections of things from Hamlet either. Thankfully, nobody's handling skulls.
For some reason, I thought there was one in there, but okay. But yeah, you are right though. Like, it is a better version, and it gives the audience some important lessons of what they can do in those situations.
Yes, the witches are definitely active in their own lives and in their own community. And even though they definitely feel hamstringed about what they can and cannot do in this monarchy, they are still trying to find solutions to the problem that keeps coming and knocking on their doors.
At one point, quite literally.
So it is, again, a bit fairy tale, a bit storybook. Now, Tom and I were discussing, and the real fairy tale one is actually the book in the series, sort of series that comes after it, Witches Abroad. Now that is fairy tale retellings. And I still don't like, why have they not made that? They haven't even tried to make that into a film yet. Disappointed. That one is wild. So they are dealing with another witch who, like, apparently is really into fairy tales and is trying to retell them with real people, whether they want to be in these fairy tales or not. It is a wild ride, y'all. And at one point they end up in an equivalent of New Orleans, which, you know what? I was not sad. I was not sad at all. Because if you've ever been to New Orleans, it is a little bit surreal, magical surrealism of like you're walking into a place that's not quite regular.
Yeah. Yeah, especially the Garden District and the waterfront.
French Quarter too.
And the French Quarter, yeah, they're not quite real.
My favorite building in the French Quarter? The one that actually inspired.
I'd say it's Captain Jack's.
Huh?
Captain Jack's.
Yeah, the bar.
Smithy.
Sure.
Yeah. It's leaning.
It leans hard, y'all.
It hasn't fallen over in 200 years somehow, but it leans.
Can't believe it survived Hurricane Katrina. And what was the other hurricane that came after?
Isaac?
Was it that one or Anna? I don't know. No, not Anna. But anyway. Yeah, I can see that. And I've been in New York. But I was in Manhattan, and that didn't feel very otherworldly to me. Granted, in fairness, I have not been there since 1992. Or 93, somewhere in there. I've slept since then. I don't remember. Rita. That's the one that I was thinking of. Was like it survived because I think Rita actually went much closer to New Orleans than Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah, that's right. Because it headed over to Texas.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it tore up Corpus Christi and Galveston, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your takeaways
From
all of this? I don't know.
That there is always a way to that kind of like we have in the last 20 years managed to undo the last 100 years viewpoint that cartoons are only for children, that it is just another way of telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Terry Pratchett definitely tried his best, and a lot of the rest of the world got the message, but America hasn't really. That fairy tales are not just for children.
Mm-hmm.
That fairy tales are for everyone. It is just a way to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
A very entertaining way to tell a story. I mean, that is what comic books are. They are fairy tales.
Mm-hmm.
But that anyone can write a story in a fairy tale style and it be entertaining to a general audience. That it's not just for kids or young adults. You can write it for adults and they are also equally fascinated. They may not always realize what they are reading is a fairy tale. And so it's fun when you just literally mention it in the story, like Terry Pratchett does. Like, this is a fairy tale we've heard of before. I know what happens at the end of this story. Well, we're not going to have that happen then.
That feels like a mood and a half.
But that it is just a type of story. Like, it is, in some ways its own genre, but it's more of a pastiche.
Mm-hmm.
It is something you can lay over just about any story because, I mean, Stephen King stories, several of them can definitely be seen as fairy tales. A lot of major popular stories can really be seen as fairy tales. Hunger Games really feels like a fairy tale.
Well, what is fairy tale to you then?
Fairy tale is where you start in a mundane situation that anyone can be in, and the world around you has larger than life fantastical situations that occur and you have to handle them.
You're just describing my real life.
Yes, well, some people live fairy tales.
Not by choice. Nobody asked me. I did not sign up for this. I just live it.
And that is where I was also noting when I was watching the first couple episodes of Bluey, of watching how the kids, self-direct their play and their storytelling, of where it will quickly go fantastical, and then the parents, being older and more experienced, then do offer a little bits of direction to help them learn lessons with these fantastical situations they have now created.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's from a safe space that they can do this. And that is what fairy tales are good for. Of, we know what happens in your regular life. Let's look at it from a fantastical situation so it's easier to see what the good solutions are, instead of most time in life you're just left with it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. And the answer is, it can seem that way, but often from a personal perspective, there is one that is a little bit better. At least you can hope that by choosing this, the results eventually will lead to better results further on. And that is what fairy tales really try to teach you, is what happens afterwards, after the big choice, after the big action and response. What is that after? We say happily ever after to say like this was a good choice, but also sometimes, they go back and you see what happened. You see the characters showing, the townspeople showing who they really were. And you can, learn from the beginning of the story what the cues and little clues were about the real character of those townspeople. And these are real lessons we can take away. But I think fairy tales are a good way to get perspective on what usually feels too close and personal a experience.
You know what feels fairy tale to me? I think it's Avengers Endgame, right? Isn't that the second one?
Yes, I think so.
That one feels... Is that the second one? Yes, I think it is. That one feels fairy tale to me. Things just sort of fit together in a way that life doesn't normally fit that easily.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really have to cobble any part. And even when things look like they're falling apart, they're still able, people just magically sort of work it out without needing to really do much like real work to make it work. That felt very fairy tale to me. Yes. Like it just fits together like as if a child was.
And to make a discussion point of something no one was expecting me to, that description of things just working out and fitting together, that is the real power of diversity. When people talk about they need to get more diversity into the writer's room or into the executive suite in businesses, what they're really bringing up is not that, oh, just because someone has a different background, they are automatically better. It's that the more different backgrounds you have, the more different perspectives, the more solutions we can find, and one that will actually work on a shorter notice. Whenever you hear about people making great inventions, it's often because they brought together two very different perspectives, two things that normally do not associate with each other, so they wouldn't even know about those qualities and points from the other. That is where invention is. And that is the real power of diversity. Like, why does Endgame, even though it is truly fantastical and fairy tale-ish, but we go with it is because it is so diverse, all the characters, that we can see them having that response. It fits for that character. It's just a lucky coincidence in some ways that character is there at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole bit where in Endgame where they go to the military base and Tony runs into his father and then they have a whole conversation about fatherhood. I'm like, okay, that feels fairy tale. And where, Tony's improvising that whole thing and it still works out even though, security is looking for him. That whole thing felt very fairy tale to me. Like, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I like Endgame quite a bit. And I love that part, that whole section when they're all going to various timelines to go get stones, and the bit where it's Captain America and Tony and I think Bruce Banner, they all go to theirs, that little time. I very much enjoyed that whole section of the movie. And yes, but it feels very fairy tale. All right, I guess I'll go Hulk it up. Like, yeah, you do that. You do the Hulky thing. Rawr, hit thing.
When you see your younger self.
And you're just like, oh, cringe. Or, yes, that is America's ass. Like, yeah, it is. I could do this all day. Yeah, I know. Like, again, it just, oh, God, why am I like this? Yep, mood.
But the fairy tale helps us accept it because it brings up those more closer to home emotional moments. Like, we see the character growth with all of them by going back in time and seeing that. But we see their growth and we feel it's earned. We feel it is valid. of just to hear and see and experience that of, oh, now I see it from the other side. Yeah, this is how I need to change and improve. Because it helps remove that truly up close and personal we all experience in a lot of our day-to-day life. There's a lot of injustice. There's a lot of difficulties to living. There's a lot of things that just don't feel fair. But when you make it fantastical and fairy tale, you can go, oh, okay, that's not my life. How would that work? And you give even your own brain opportunity to work on solutions without anxiety popping its head up going, no, you have to use something immediate and something realistic and we know will work. You can't, it frees your imagination for better solutions. Hence, it's a good way to build a better world, to give people hope.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I can see how this is a very useful method or style to use to illustrate to readers how the world really can be a bit better. Because again, I would like to remind anybody who ever watches this that humans cannot make it a reality until they can imagine it. And our job as writers is to help readers imagine it. So write the world you want to be in. Write the world as it should be according to you. Whether that means that you're not, you don't live in a world, you want to not live in a world where there's ableism or where, bigotry of all kinds is not a thing. Whatever it is you want. Start writing about characters and places that are working towards that or have already achieved it. It doesn't necessarily mean your characters will be happy, but you know what? It would be great to deal with less bigotry. It sure would.
I mean,
but people cannot make this real until they can imagine it, and they are not the creatives that we are as writers. We're the ones who can build whole worlds.
And I mean, you want to see this as a case in point, look to Star Trek. The people who are real fans of Star Trek and of the entire Star Trek as a universe are the ones who like Star Trek for here's a better world. Here's something to work towards. Here's the way to work with each other and take note. And, really, you look at a lot of Star Trek stories, episodes, they are fantastical and fairy tale-ish in what happens and then how it works out. I mean, yeah, plot armor is a thing. And that is just part of a fairy tale, but also sometimes it does seem to happen in real life. Things working out is often coincidence.
As I said, you're describing my life, how dare. Tom knows. He knows that, I am stuck in this fairy tale gothic southern novel. At least it makes for good copy.
It does.
But anyhow, that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk about Terry Pratchett novels and encourage everybody to take a look at the list we've made. It is not everything. We didn't list the Johnny and the Bomb series or the Bromeliad cartoons, mostly because, quite honestly, we didn't really care for them. You might care for them. That's cool. Again, my feelings will not be hurt. But these are the ones that we could personally say, hey, these hold up pretty decent. Watch them. If you like it, then definitely give the book a try. Even though, most Americans have never heard of Terry Pratchett, you can source the books in America because I happen to know you can source Terry Pratchett's books in most of Asia in English, and it's also been translated in a couple dozen languages. Definitely give Pratchett a try. But a very nice way to do it is, you could toe dip in by watching any of these movies, shorts, or TV series and see what you think. And if you find what you like, try reading the book. And if you like that, try giving some others in the sub-series a try. Because most of his stories, actually, it's series within series. So there's the Witches series, there's the Night Watch series, Death has his own series. There's a bunch of different series.
There's Moist Fun Lipstick business series.
Mm-hmm. So,
and of course,
give it a try and see what you think. And see if you are getting what we're talking about here about writing things a little bit more fairy tale.
I mean, if you are really into Phantom of the Opera, go read Masquerade. It is definitely a retelling of Phantom of the Opera with a lot more commentary and interesting points of that world.
Because wouldn't you like to live in a world that you'd actually want to live in? I don't know any writer who's 100% satisfied with the world they live in. And if they are satisfied, it must be nice to have such great health and to be a cisgendered white male. Because everyone else is dealing with lots of bigotry. Now, I'm not saying that cisgendered white males are not dealing with some kind of bigotry. It is small by comparison. But bigotry is a real bummer. All bigotry is a real bummer. It is definitely a joy killer for everyone who encounters it. But again, people will not work toward anything that they cannot imagine. And if we write it, they can then imagine it because we're, essentially we're doing most of the work for them. And then they can imagine a world that is something more lovely to live in. So give it a try. See what you think. At the very least, if you find you like Terry Pratchett, you are going to have many dozens of books to read. So you'll have something to read. Which that would be lovely. If you live in America, that means that you are well read about him when most other Americans have not a clue. So you're already ahead of the game.
And you can then introduce it to your friends.
Mm-hmm. But see what you think. See what you think of his whimsy and his fairy tale retellings. I'll tell you what.
And if you're pagan, go look up Tiffany Aiken, his young adult series.
If you're looking for the kind of book that is a bit bone chilling, I recommend Guards. That is some bone chilling stuff. And if you don't find that bone chilling, do let me know. But to this day, Guards still scariest book I've ever read in my life. And yes, I have read Stephen King. There is no scarier monsters than other humans going, hey, you look young and delicious. Go jump in that dragon's mouth. Okay, thanks. So with that, I think we're wrapping up for the day. Tom, do you have any more final thoughts?
Like all writing, have fun. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Write the stories you want to read.
Write the world you want to live in.
So read the stories you want to live in as well. And if you can't find what you want to read, well, then you definitely better write it. And of course, start small. And please remember to put the hook in the first paragraph. Please, please, please. Put the hook in the first paragraph. All right. With that, why can I never find what I'm looking for? Here, while I'm looking. We hope you've enjoyed. If you have, maybe you'd like to stroke the like button. Are you subscribed? Are you still subscribed? Here's a fun fact. YouTube algorithm occasionally unsubscribes people from all sorts of YouTube channels. It is a wild ride here in YouTube land. And yet, I keep coming back. So, just to mention, have you subscribed? Also, highly recommend ring the notification bell so that you maybe, possibly, one day might get a notification when we post new stuff. Do you like cats? We have a cat who I mostly call Kitty because that's how I roll, y'all. And for whatever the reason, we make weekly videos about her. So at least you'll get shorts about cats. Also, Tom does food delivery, and he likes to record cats on the street. Random cats, street cats. I don't know, just cats out in the neighborhood. So there will be other cats too in our shorts. If you like cats, we have shorts. We hope you'll subscribe. Please feel free to let us know in the chat and the comments what you think. Next week, we're going to talk about Pixar shorts and what we, as storytellers, can learn from Pixar storytelling. And the answer is it's not all tears.
Grab them by the heartstrings.
But it is a lot of tears.
You will feel. Pixar is how you test if you've got low mood disorder or not.
Why?
Because Pixar shorts will make you feel no matter what. If you're not feeling anything watching Pixar shorts, you may need to go see a doctor.
All right, that's fair. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about Pixar shorts. A bunch of the Pixar shorts are available to watch on YouTube. So it's something that most everyone will be able to enjoy. But yeah, we're going to talk about the Pixar style of storytelling. And then what we as storytellers can gain from better understanding Pixar through their short stories, through their short films. Hope you'll come. Just so you know, after that, in March, our lineup is Pixar shorts. Then we're going to talk about the Cyrano de Bergerac story. Then we'll talk about Mel Brooks. And truly, let's be honest, it's going to be a love letter to Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks' entire career. And then, for the final week of March, we're going to talk about Gene Wilder and his storytelling, both as a writer and a director, as well as an actor as well. I know a lot of people remember him. And Mel Brooks definitely influenced Gene Wilder. So this is going to be fun. But anyhow, we hope you'll join us or rewatch afterwards and use these to help with your creative process, or at least kind of inspire you some more. Because I know sometimes I deal with the creative well starts running low. And so these are the things that I do to kind of refill that creative well and get re-inspired. So we hope you'll join us next week. And thank you again so much for being here. Now, if you are ever interested, we do, of course, have links down below in the doobly-doo. Just like to point out that somewhere around between 7 and 8 p.m. Central Time, some of us are going to convene in our Unicorn Council Discord server in the Clubhouse voice chat to hang out. It's sort of like just hanging out or study hall where people are doing their own thing, but they also maybe are chatting. Like I'll be playing Don't Starve Together with Brian of the Dorsets, and other people do their own thing and they write or they edit images or whatever they do, or sometimes they just read fan fiction while we all just chit chat around them. And it's just fun to hang out. We'd love for you to join. Everybody is welcome. If you're not already part of the Discord server, we'd love to have you. And the link for that, if you're not part of the Discord server, is down below in my link tree. If you click on my link tree link, I think it's now third down, is a Discord invite. If you have any problems with that, please let me know on any of my social media so that I can check. And we will see y'all next week. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Good night, everybody.